Hello, my name is Rashid James, and I'm applying for the We the Future Contest Scholarship. And I'm going to quickly explain to you how the U.S. used the Constitution to create change, a positive change in the U.S., while in other countries, they did not receive the same privileges. So we're going to firstly talk about the most commonly talked about amendment of the entire Constitution, which is the First Amendment. And we're going to mainly focus on the freedom of speech part. And it's a very, very, very important part of the Constitution that without it, no laws would have been created whatsoever.
Many across the world would love to have this right, but us as Americans do take our freedom of speech for granted. And I'm going to explain to you why we shouldn't. Back in 1989, protests arose after pro-reform leader CCP General Secretary Hu Yaobang of China passed away, leaving a power vacuum, which is something very uncommon in the U.S. because we have our presidential succession processes, which goes from the president to the vice president to the Speaker of the House of the United States Congress. The government was repressive, but the former leader was progressive, and he was changing the country after the former leader before him, Chairman Mao, passed away. And unfortunately, after he passed away in 1989, students in Beijing who protested the CCP led to a massacre of the college students led by the Chinese government, which rocked China to its core and still does to this day.
Now we're still going to focus on the First Amendment. Here's the second part of it, freedom of religion. And you guys might not think that this is very important. You know, people can think how they want, and you might think that's how the world is. But unfortunately, it has not always been free of religious persecution.
From the beginning of time, people were always persecuted for their religious beliefs. Examples that ring a bell is the Pharaoh and the Israelites with the prophet Moses, the Christians and the pre-Christian Roman Empire, to Muslims being encamped and re-educated in China today. But the major reasons why the founding fathers ensured that we had this right is because they suffered religious persecution themselves. During the Middle Ages in Europe, the Catholic Church was the one and only denomination of the Christian faith. If anyone were to ever deny its authority or even question the legitimacy of the church, they were to be hanged, burned, or beheaded for heresy. So the U.S. basically opted out of that situation and ensured the same will not happen between the U.S. borders.
Next, we have our trusted election processes. The U.S. Constitution doesn't, I would say, cover everything about this, but majorly it's been controlled by the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives, who've made laws throughout the history of the country to impact this specific topic.
Though our election's legitimacy has come into question in the last 20 years by some big well-known names such as Donald Trump, Stacey Abrams, Hillary Clinton, Al Gore, and Rudy Giuliani, and many more, our elections are more secure than any other nation on earth. Unlike other nations, we use institutions stacked to make our elections safe and secure, including the Board of Elections, ballot counters, bipartisan voter chaperones, so the people who hang around and watch people vote. This is a stark difference compared to the Ivory Coast, which held a federal election back in 2010, the first they had since 2000, where the leader named Gbagbo denied the results, and it caused a large Ivorian, the second civil war, creating chaos and turmoil in their region.
Now, you may think that our government has all power and that each single branch can just do whatever they please as long as they get enough votes. But that's actually incorrect. We have a limited power system, and I'm going to quickly explain that to you.
In this country, we have a system called checks and balances, whereby each branch of government can check each other based on the Constitution and or civil laws or civil rules set by law. On the other hand, Middle Age Europe had absolute monarchies, whose head or leader was sovereign, meaning they have the supreme authority over every decision that is made within their borders. We call this a king or queen, or both. or just monarch. We opted out of the absolute monarchy when we won the American Revolution in 1776 and elected a president which has limited powers.
And that is it for this video. I hope you guys learned something informative about the U.S. Constitution. You should definitely read up on it. It is the law of the land and is one of the most important pieces of literature and most important pieces of law that has ever been created in the history of the world. And since we have done that, so many countries have taken part in creating their own constitutions and their own rights. That really makes sense because it just was not a thing in the past to make constitutions. The law was the law. Whatever the monarch said is what goes. So now it is a new time, it is a new generation, and it has been for hundreds of years now. So read up on the Constitution, know your rights, know what limits the power of the government, and know what you can do to make change by using the U.S. Constitution.